What's up, YouTube? Today I want to introduce you to a technology I am absolutely obsessed with. It is called NetBird. Now, if you guys know anything about overlay VPNs or mesh VPNs, just like Tailscale, NetBird is basically the same thing. There are some key differences between this and Tailscale that I'm going to go over, but I'm going to tell you I absolutely love NetBird right now. It is the only way I'm doing VPN. I've completely abandoned WG-Easy and just doing straight WireGuard servers for this VPN service. So this is the main page. You can find some more information at netbird.io. Their documentation is absolutely phenomenal. I'm going to just click over to the docs tab right now to show you. This is the site. There's a ton of video on here. There's also a ton of stuff by Lawrence Systems. So Lawrence Systems is another YouTuber who I hope you watch and follow. He's already done some videos on NetBird, and they're absolutely incredible. I recommend you watch those. Those are a little bit more of a deep dive than I'm going to go into today. I'm going to show you basically how to get NetBird up and running in your TrueNAS system and how to access it from anywhere. That's the goal of this video. Lawrence goes into a lot more features that it has. I'm not going to get too complicated. I just want to jump right in. So let's go ahead and start right now. I'm going to start by closing this tab for the documentation. I'm going to close this tab and I'm going to show you my actual dashboard for my NetBird. So after you've logged into NetBird, after you've created an account, I've used my GitHub, for example. You can use Microsoft, you can use Google. I chose GitHub. This is an actual true dashboard of what I'm running right now in my NetBird. So I'm going to show you guys just a little bit of a quick tour around this, and then I'm going to show you how to install it on TrueNAS so you can see how to make a connector, how to publish some routes in the Tailscale terminology, and then how to connect to them. So let's start by this. This is my peer dashboard. Peers are basically the same thing as machines would be in Tailscale. These are all endpoints. You can add a peer just by clicking this button, and they give you a bunch of different options on how to do that. So I will tell you that for our demonstration today, we're going to be using the Linux command line, but you can also run this in a Docker container. You'll see here that they have a Docker run command. I've actually already started the wiki page for this, and then here I have the Docker compose. I think the Docker compose is a little bit more straightforward. So you can go ahead and take and just steal this Docker compose right from here and use your setup key, which I'm going to show you how to make in a hot second, to deploy this on Docker. So let's come back over here to my peer. I'm going to close that right now. These are the peers I have in existence. I'm not going to click these because when I do, it's going to show you guys the real IP of where they are, and I don't want to expose the IP, but when you click these, it'll give you more information on them. Over here on the right, we have this little drop-down panel to do things like enable session expiration, which of course I always do. I don't want these devices to ever be kicked off my net for not re-authenticating soon enough. You can do SSH access and exit nodes right through here, and that's full tunnel for people who are unfamiliar with that. Right now, everything is set up as a split tunnel. And again, an overlay VPN is a little bit different than a traditional VPN. I'm actually going to steal a page out of the Tailscale documentation to explain the difference between mesh VPNs and traditional VPNs, basically using their picture here. When I was using a WireGuard server before, this is basically how it works in the case of a traditional WireGuard server. So this says traditional VPN gateway, but imagine I've got a bunch of clients right here connected to a WireGuard server, and that WireGuard server can connect me to other things that are connected to the WireGuard server, basically for any traffic to travel. Say, for example, this client wants to connect to this client. This client would have to go first to the VPN server, then the VPN server would send his traffic back down the line to this client. These two clients don't actually connect directly. They're relaying all their information through a server. The problem with this is this server can only sit on a single subnet. In this case, the example here is 10.0.0.0/24. So when any of these clients would be able to access anything on this subnet, as long as in Tailscale terms, I would basically publish this route, and then this one route in this subnet would be exposed to all of these clients. But say I had multiple subnets that I needed to be exposed, there's no way to do that with a traditional VPN like WireGuard. Now, mind you, WireGuard is a protocol, so what I'm really talking about is the WireGuard server, or WG-Easy, which is the GUI front end for basically managing WireGuard. It's the way I've done things up until now. The mesh VPN is quite different than these little single spokes. When I scroll down here, this is what a mesh VPN looks like. Notice how it's more like spoke and wheel. Every single one of these nodes is connected to every single other one of these nodes with a default ACL. And I'm going to talk about ACLs later, but long story short, if I want to go from node to node, I don't have to hop through a whole bunch of things. I can just make a direct contact just like this, or direct contact like that. Or this node can make a direct contact like that. Every single node connects to every single other node. It does this with the WireGuard protocol under the hood, but none of these nodes is actually, quote unquote, the single server. server. They all act as a server of a subnet if I'd like them to. So I just wanted to show you guys that picture so you kind of get a better idea of the difference between the traditional like one route, kind of have to go through this thing, versus the ability to connect to everything, everywhere, all at once. So now I'm going to jump back over to the peers page and show you exactly what I'm talking about. The first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to create a setup key. So when I come over here to setup keys, I have a setup key that's reusable right now. Again, I don't mind showing you this because you can't actually see the key, and I can revoke it at any time. It makes no difference. You're going to want to go over here and create a setup key. You're going to type in like new key, for example. Just give it a name. I always make mine reusable, and I can give it to an unlimited number of peers, but I might say, hey, I want to limit it to maybe just 1 or 2 peers before this key expires. I'm going to leave it unlimited. I'm going to leave it unlimited here, like that. And then I'm not going to do ephemeral peers, and I'm not going to do extra DNS. And then I can do a group if I want, and then just create this key. And you'll see this key shows up like that. Make sure to save this key because you're going to need it later when you set up some other clients. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this, and I'm going to copy it off the screen to my text editor. And there we go. It's saved right now. So let's go ahead and close this. So there we go. So there's my new key. Now I'm going to go over here to my peers, and I'm going to want to add a peer with the new key. So let's show you guys how to do this in TrueNAS. I'm going to jump over here to my TrueNAS instance, and I can do this through Docker, and I can do this through a number of different ways. So I'm going to show you guys how to do it through an instance, and I kind of like this way more. Now, you guys, if you want to do it through Docker, you can go ahead and just go to your apps. We can do a discover apps, and then you want to do install via YAML, and then we're just going to we can call this NetBird, for example. And then over here in your custom config, you're going to want to come over to the wiki page and then just copy and paste this right in here. That setup key that I just made, we're just going to paste that right in here in this line, and then you'd come over and you'd click deploy here. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that for a specific reason, and I'm going to tell you why in a minute. Let's come over here. Yes, I do want to close. I'm going to actually create an instance right here, and again, I'm working in Fangtooth, which is what everybody's been working in a few days from now. Hopefully, I recommend you upgrade on Tuesday when it gets released. We're going to do a container. I'm going to call this NetBird, just like that. My container and image is going to be Ubuntu, just like that. I'm going to do Noble, and I'm going to do the default for Noble. And I'm not going to give it any other things like that. And I'm just going to click create. Mind you, my bridge is already made. If you don't have a bridge, I recommend you go ahead and create a bridge. I'm going to show you what my network page looks like in a second. Notice here that I have a bridge, and it's already connected to my network. So this is important that you have this made already. Let's go back to my instances tab, and this is my NetBird instance. So let's go ahead and jump into the shell. I'm just going to want to do a couple things really fast. First thing I want to do is I want to do an apt update and apt upgrade -y. That's going to run. I just want to make sure my instance is always up to date, and it is. Now we're just going to do an apt install curl, just like that. And yes, I do want to install, and it's going to install curl, and now curl is in. So now we can come back over here to the wiki, and let's go bare metal Linux. Let's come over here and copy this whole script and dump it right in here, like so. Now this is going to install the entire network package. It shouldn't take too long. Once this is done, I'm going to go ahead and show you how to run the correct command. So this is now done. So now it says you can run the install command by using NetBird up, but I don't want to do that. What I want to do is I want to come over here, and I want to do a NetBird up with my setup key, just like this. So I'm going to copy this first, because I need the first half of this. And I'm going to paste it here. And then I'm going to hit space, and then I'm going to copy my setup key right here, like that. And I'm going to hit enter, and we are going to connect. So now it says connected. So now I can do a NetBird status, and I can see I'm connected. So let's come back out here now, and let's go back to my peers, and we are going to see, after I refresh this just like that, here we go. Here is NetBird. So NetBird has now just been connected. It's got all my stuff in here, and it's working. It's right now considered all. This is where I want to start talking about ACLs. First, I want to show you that this is working just the way it's supposed to, because right now, in my access controls and my policies, actually I've turned the default off. So I'm going to turn this back on so now all can reach all. I had that turned off before. I'm going to show you this policy because I want to show you guys some cool stuff. So now I'm going to do a ping, and I can use DNS names, for example. So let's come back over to my peers, And this is really cool. It works just like Tailscale. All these names are also DNS names. So for example, Proxmox is a DNS name. So I can come over here and I can ping Proxmox like that. And you can see that one packet has been transmitted and one packet has been received, and it's filled in the IP address for me, 184.64.25. And that's right what you'll see on Proxmox. So that's really cool. I now know I can reach Proxmox. Let's show you how this is going to not work like that. Let's come over to my access control policies and turn my default policy back off again. Now I'm going to come right back in here. Notice I didn't make any other changes. I'm going to run the same exact ping test. Notice here, 100% packet loss. So now we've successfully shown that by switching off this default, I can completely modify the way that traffic flows within my Mesh VPN on NetBird. So what if I want to actually publish a route? And that's the most important thing, because while all these peers can talk to each other on these 100 dot addresses, those 100 dot addresses aren't the ones I'm probably going to use. I'm probably going to use the private IPv4. So right now I have two networks set up. I have home and work, and each of them have a separate resource. So for example, work is my 10.240 subnet, and then home is my 10.99 subnet. So the goal is that any single device I have hooked up to this can reach not just all the 100 dot whatever addresses that NetBird is giving my endpoints, but also all my 1099 net, which is my entire home net, and my 10.240 net, which is all my work servers. So that's really important, because I want to be able to be on my phone, for example, and reach 10.240.0. whatever, or 1099.0. whatever, all at the same time. And that's really cool, because that's something that WireGuard also can't do. With WireGuard, wherever my WireGuard server sits, that's the one subnet I get. But with NetBird, each one of these peers can publish a subnet, which is then available to all the other peers based on policy. So how do I actually go ahead and set that up? Well, we go over here to networks, and I'm going to add a network in here. And this is going to be called, I'm just going to call this YouTube net, just for the demonstration purposes of this video. I'm going to click add network. That's cool. I'm going to want to add this resource. This resource is going to be YouTube subnet. And the YouTube subnet is going to be 192.168.1.0, and this is pretty much how I would expose a 192 subnetwork. Now the trick to this is, if I'm going to expose the subnet, there has to be a node on NetBird that actually sits on that subnet. So I'm going to say that, for example, even though this TrueNAS machine doesn't sit on that, I'm going to pretend it does, and I'm going to use this endpoint to publish the 192.168 route. So I'm gonna come back over here, and I'm gonna select my groups, and I'm gonna like say all groups can use this, and that's fine. Add resource. Now I'm gonna say do a policy, and I'm gonna, yes, I do want to create a policy, and I'm gonna say everybody can go from everybody, just like that. And I'm gonna enable this policy, continue, and then I'm gonna call it name and description, and that's cool. I'm gonna click add policy. I'm gonna add a routing peer. I'm just gonna walk through these steps just like that. My routing peer is going to say, hey, what machine sits on the 192.168 network that's going to route this traffic? And the answer to that is going to be the NetBird one I just made. And I'm going to click continue, and I'm not going to touch any of this, and I'm going to click add routing peer. So here we go. Here's my YouTube net policy. So again, I had one for home, I had one for work, and now I've got this example one for YouTube. It's got a resource. In this case, the resource and the policy is going to be this. Everybody gets to go to everybody, and YouTube subnet is this subnet, and this is the computer that publishes the subnet. So here is my subnet. Here's the peer that's going to allow that traffic to flow through it. There's a policy here, and the policy is basically everybody to everybody. It's called YouTube subnet, and it's going to allow everybody to go everywhere. Let's look at the active policy here. And this is the YouTube subnet policy, everybody to everybody. Now, again, I could have just clicked default, but it's okay. I'd rather just leave it like that. And the last thing we have here is the peer. This is one of the super cool things we can do with NetBird that I've never seen anywhere else. Notice here we have one peer, and if I hover over, it says high availability is currently inactive for this network. Go ahead and add more routing peers or groups with routing peers to enable high availability for this network. What are they talking about? I can click add routing peer and then just list another machine that sits on that network, and I can have dual options. So I'm going to show you what that actually looks like, because I have that set up for my HomeNet. HomeNet has two routing peers, both TrueNAS and Proxmox. TrueNAS and Proxmox both give my publish this peer, this route 1099.0.0. So say, for example, my TrueNAS machine goes down and I'm out of my house, and TrueNAS is the only peer that I have publishing the 1099 route. I'm going to lose connectivity to my entire 1099 subnet because the one peer that was giving me access, for whatever reason, may have gone down. But with NetBird, because I have a separate machine running Proxmox that's also running a NetBird endpoint, both of these machines can give me access to the 1099 subnet simultaneously without any IP collisions. That is so cool, because if TrueNAS goes down, I don't lose connectivity to my house. I can still come in through Proxmox. The other really cool thing I can do is set the priority for which one of those I want to use. So say, for example, even though I've got both of these, how do I want the traffic to actually flow? By setting this metric to 1 and this metric to 2, I'm basically saying, hey, the first priority is Proxmox. When I go to the 10.99 network, I want all of my traffic to flow through Proxmox. But if for whatever reason Proxmox is down, I want to fall back to TrueNAS, and it's going to happen invisibly. I've done this before. So by doing this, we can add routing peers, and we can add any machine that we want that's sitting on the correct subnet, and then we'll instantaneously have high availability active for this subnet. This has got to be one of the coolest things I've ever seen. By being able to do that now, I've created this, and I've created policies, and I can add routing peers for high availability, and it just simply works. I do want to mention a small caveat to this. The reason that we're running this connector through this instance, for example, instead of just through Docker, is for one specific reason alone. If I come over here to apps and I launch NetBird in Docker, the problem I'm going to have is that I can't forward any of the Docker containers from the same network when it's installed on Docker. So what did I just say? In the event you install NetBird in your TrueNAS machine through the Discover Apps and Custom YAML, I can't publish the route of this machine. So say, for example, I want to use this to publish 10.99.0.0/24 because that's where it sits. It sits on 10.99, right? If I go ahead and use that and publish 10.99 through this TrueNAS machine, and I try to access 1099.0.191 let's say Jellyfin 8096, it is not going to work. And the reason for that is the IP tables are not set up to forward that Docker container from the host back to Docker containers running on the same machine. That doesn't work like that. I've done this 10 ways from Sunday, guys. The best way to do this is through an instance, because this is going to get its own IP address. And by having its own IP address, it's going to allow me to get to all my Docker containers on this TrueNAS machine. Now, here's the beautiful part. Because this is an instance and this interface is virtualized, I'm going to have no network lag, and it takes up virtually no resources whatsoever to run this. It's 150 megabytes of memory and about 0.1% CPU. So I take no resources at all from my container pretty much to run this connector, and it gives me full access to my TrueNAS machine and all the Docker containers running on it. If I run this connector in Docker on TrueNAS itself, I'm going to lose access to the Docker containers. I won't be able to get to any of these exposed ports. So that's the reason that I ran this through an instance instead of through Docker. If you don't have any Docker containers running on wherever your endpoint is, you can run it just through Docker and it works just fine. I've already done that. It's great. But for a lot of people running TrueNAS like myself who have a ton of apps, kind of like I do have right here, I do not want to use NetBird in Docker because I will lose access to the Docker containers running on the host. I'm going to want to run it through an instance or through a VM, but probably through an instance specifically just because it's so light and easy. And you saw the commands I had to run. It was very simple. Now, there are a ton of other features with NetBird. So I come back out here, you'll see here I have networks, I have access controls and the policies here. I've already set up some other policies that allow me to tag things to destinations. So just a quick overview for my 1099 My Home network. The policy is basically this. If I label a source as trusted, it gets the destination of home subnet. And it's really easy to do that. And I'll come back over to my peers and I'll show you, for example, that when I look at, for example, let's go to my peers here, and I'm going to go to any one of these peers, and let's look at NetBird, for example. There we go. When I look at accessible peers, you'll see here that because all is selected, I have now the ability to see everything. So let's come back out here and let's change that. I'm going to change this policy, for example, to say delete this, because I don't want to use this policy anymore. And now I want to give my NetBird access to 10.99. So let's go ahead and go into my peers, and I'm going to go into NetBird. I'm going to click groups, and I'm going to say I don't want to give it all. I want to give it trusted, just like that. And I'm going to hit save group, just like that. Now when I go back into NetBird and I click accessible peers, you'll see here now, because I've given it trusted, it only has 2 accessible peers. These are the only peers that are available on the trusted network, my TrueNAS machine and my Proxmox machine, because those are the 2 machines sitting on 10.99. So by doing that now, I've limited my ability, the ability of NetBird to access anything that's not considered quote unquote trusted. So when I go back to policies, you'll see here my trusted group for example, only has access to the 10.99 subnet. So in this case now, the NetBird endpoint that I created is only going to get 10.99. It will lose access to 10.240, and it will lose access to anything that's not considered quote unquote trusted. So now trusted only consists of 3 peers. Let's come back over here to groups, and here's trusted, and here's 5 machines in trusted, and 1 of them is used in access control. So there's 5 machines, but 2 of them are offline right now, which is why you only see 2 of them active when I click on NetBird. So that'll give me just a really cool way to look at these things and understand what's happening. And here we can see here that group policies and 3 network resources. There's all kinds of cool things here that we can do. But I just wanted to give you a quick overview of just how simple it is to do these access policies. And the reason I want to show you that is because this is, again, not seen anywhere. In Tailscale, you have to do ACLs, and ACLs are done in JSON format. It is not straightforward. This is much more straightforward. I can just click what I want to have access to. I give everything these really cool tags like I just showed you, and I can do destination resources or destination machines. I can pick. This is, in this case, a subnet, which is considered a quote-unquote resource. But I could have said, hey, I only want NetBird to be able to access one other machine and just name a machine here or name a group of machines or name a publish route. I have all kinds of options for what sources and destinations I have, as well as the directionality. In this case, I can change directionality and say I only want this to go one way instead of dual access like I have right here. That's going to start getting into the weeds, and I don't want to get too far into it. I just want to show you how easy it is to do this because it's all just point and click. I don't have to change anything on any of the nodes. Like in Trailscale, I have to do a double dash accept routes, or I have to maybe publish routes from the peer or the machine. We don't do any of that in NetBird. It's all managed directly here, all through tags, all through the UI, without any JSON or any code. It's literally just as simple as coming back in here and clicking those tags. So I come back to NetBird, for example. I want to come back out here. Let's come back out here to this, and I'm just going to remove the trusted tag just like that. That's it. That's how hard it was. I didn't have to edit anything else. So I just wanted to show you guys that so you get an idea just how cool this technology is and why I'm using this over Tailscale right now. I think it's absolutely amazing. I would recommend you guys use it. I'm hoping you guys are going to try this out and really just start playing with it. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Please leave comments below. If you have technical comments, please leave them in Discord. And if you want to thank me, please buy me a coffee.